That's good.
All right. Well, I'll call this meeting to order. And
Roll call is Ellen Stallings
here,
and Scott Hagan is on vacation. Uh, So on the agenda, are there any items missing we'd like to add, adjust? I didn't know exactly where to start here because this is a pretty large undertaking. So I wanted to kind of figure out exactly, kind of get our bearings. So I'm leaning on the expertise here a little bit.
sure. It looks like a decent outline to me to get us started. And that's really my only comment.
Any public comment? All right. So the general budget report, as we all know, I'm pretty new. So I've been trying to figure out where money is going, where it's spending, break down our monthly expenditures, our quarterly, annually, and just trying to put all that into one spot and then try to figure out some sort of average for our income so that we can kind of say this much is going out, this much is coming in. But obviously we have the budget that's coming due. It's been brought to my attention that our board policies may differ from the state requirements and they may be more strict. So I will be looking into that to verify what our board policy states regarding the budget, because we want to make sure we're adhering to those requirements. From my understanding for last year, and my intent is not to knock on anybody or downplay efforts or anything like that. It sounds like last year we were stretched a little thin, and the efforts that we made might have been a little bit, or the outcome might reflect that slightly. So as we go back towards some of the older ones, the budgets that I've seen seem a little more robust. So I think we could kind of start to move back to this kind of idea, and then and maybe add any particular extras that we want to or need to.
Robust in terms of background material and how it's laid out and so forth.
Just kind of more methodically thought through. And one of the things that I think has been a struggle for probably a while is the compliance of payment. So we have a plan for starting in the new fiscal year to start kind of educating. I think a lot of it comes down to people don't know or understand. And so the last thing we want to do is just blindside people with, hey, this is our new thing and we're going to try to get money from everybody. So we want to let them know, like, this is kind of the plan to lay out. After your first quarter of non-payment, this is what you can expect. After your second quarter of non-payment, this is what you can expect. And after your third, at that point, I think where we're at right now is that might go to county, and then we start moving down the process of putting liens and doing whatever legal actions we can take to put a little more pressure on collecting payments. As that is basically 98% of our revenue here. So we need to be a little more diligent in making sure that we're making sure everybody adheres to the same.
So first would be educating, and are those procedures in our policies already?
I'm going to verify to see where the policy breaks down in the county and make sure, because ultimately we need to adhere to the most strict version of whatever. So whichever ones we look at in that space. Okay. So.
And in terms of delinquencies, do you have an idea what we are looking at in delinquencies now?
As far as percentages, when I talked to Holly, it was actually higher than I anticipated. I was thinking it was going to be close to 80% or 80% compliant, 20% delinquent, which was just a ballpark idea based on almost no knowledge. But I think we are closer to 90% in our compliance, which is at least from what we can tell. The other issue that we're running into is we're updating all of the files for all of the connected EDUs. So how many of those folks are not in QuickBooks and not showing as non-compliant? So there might be some variation and wiggle there as well. So there's kind of a lot of moving pieces to figuring that number out, but it is something we're actively looking at.
So that seems a little bit better news than we thought.
Yeah.
So 90% compliance, and a lot of those people could be deceased.
Potentially.
So, and then we just have to hunt down their heirs and so forth.
Yeah. The key thing for us to have any legal ground is we need to put liens on products prior to sale. There is a legal precedence for us to pursue a lien on a property after, but it feels bad. Like, because at the end of the day, like, I mean, you bought a property, it's up to your real estate agent to tell you the liens on the property if the lien didn't exist. And to what extent we can actually go down that path, I don't know, but it does sound like there is a precedent for it. But if we're doing what we should be doing, those things should be there in advance. So, I mean, I think the lien, if I remember correctly, it was after 3/4 of a year, after 3 missed payments. But I'd have to verify that time frame.
And is that a process that involves lawyers?
No, so that is actually, as far as I understand, that's just us reporting it to the county.
Okay.
And so we say these payments have not been made, and then that's the next step. If we actually want to move into, I think after 3 years, and I could be wrong on that number, it is a foreclosable lien that you could foreclose on the property. I think that would involve lawyers if we got to that part. But up until that, I think it's just a lien on the property itself. But if they tried to sell the property, all those liens would have to be paid before it could change hands. And that's kind of the key thing, is making sure that takes place first.
Okay, so that's new information to me. I didn't know that we could do a lien just on services like that. I thought it had to be something. So that's good to know, and that we can do it through the process in-house. That's also good to know.
Might be a little off topic too, but there is discussion about being able to shut off service and put a little extra pressure in that space as well. They're talking about doing like an airbag at the EDU, where we would actually be able to potentially, but I have to look into the legalities of that and what all that entails as well.
Yeah, I do recall at some point there's some kind of a balloon that you could put in that and stop it up or whatever.
Notify the county that you've ceased operations of that system, and then that is when health and no, it's the health board.
Yeah,
Health gets involved because then it's a public safety.
Okay. And so historically, this hasn't been done just because of manpower, or do we know?
I would venture to say it's probably a manpower issue. I know there's been a lot of turnover, so there's probably an education issue. There's probably, I mean, it's drinking out of a fire hose. So, at some point you can only take on so much. And so depending on who was prioritizing what, like it might just have been the next thing on the list that never got to. But at the end of the day, for what we're doing here, I mean, it's kind of priority one is make sure our budget, our finances, everything is on lockdown, and we understand where money's coming in and where it's going out, and there's not any excess, because we just don't have a lot of excess. So,
Yeah.
So you said that 98% of the revenue, is that from those sewer fees that we pay quarterly?
So just for the record, that 98 came off the top of my head, but it's just, if you bring in the revenue we bring from fire, the revenue we bring from sewer, the revenue we bring from rec, I mean, it's going to be a very high percentage of the revenue, but that is just the quarterly billing fees. As far as the bond repayments, that's not money to us. That is strictly bond repayment. There is pieces of that go into a renew replace account that is fortunate that we can use for like the pond liner repairs and things of that nature. And there's currently approximately $110,000 in there. I'm still trying to figure out the $49 that's part of the assessment. I've gotten mixed messages from the county. They don't have it separated out from the bond, but Wildan has told me it's not part of the bond. So I don't know if I didn't ask the right question. I'm going back to Wildan to verify, but that $49 is either supposed to be for our own renew replace account that's for the district, or it's funding the renew replace account that's in the bond, which it could be either.
And I could not get an answer to that question either.
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep.
Place means it's specified. That's
Yeah.
not money to pay employees. That's
No.
not money, it's to.
Doesn't buy equipment, gear, payroll, none of that. It's specifically for check valves and maintenance and replacement. And, yeah. So.
Okay. Getting back to the other subject, do you have a sense with that 10% that's delinquent, how much that is? I mean, how can we calculate that based upon how many people, hookups and so forth,
I
to
would,
get a rough idea?
I would say it's approximately 30 to 40,000 would be
Quarterly or annually?
annual.
That's a pretty darn good chunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly.
And I'm going off of the best information I have, which is not perfect at this point in time. So,
Right.
but that should be approximately 10% of our revenue.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
That in the budget, because you can't count on it, right?
So if I'm being naive and fresh to this, the way that I think it should work is that we would agree on a specified percentage that we're going to budget off of, and everything above that would be surplus. So if you're going to say that we're expecting 90% compliance, then we would budget with that in mind. That way we're not operating in a deficit in case we have non-payment.
But you wouldn't budget 100% knowing you're putting liens on this property.
I personally wouldn't, but that's where I'm kind of falling on expertise here because this is the first budget I've built. I plan on giving myself a crash course and understanding exactly what this should look like and what looks good and what looks bad, and making sure that we're on the good side of things. But in the way that I budget my own household, I would not plan on.
No, it'd be like counting your chickens,
Yeah.
you know, pretty much. And so I get that. That makes sense to me, Sherry, to just base it off of a percentage. And then if we do get the delinquencies taken care of, then that is surplus.
Yeah.
You know.
And then I think if we continue to see benefits in that 90% moves to 92 to 94, then we can start to look at that average and say, okay, basing our budget on 90% seems low now. We should be able to average 92. We can kind of move that year to year based on performance and how the process is playing out. I would think that that would make sense as well. But that probably is a number that we would need to look at year by year. Make sure our budget's as accurate as it can be. So I'll throw, is there any additional committee comments regarding the report? Okay. And any public comment? All right. We do not have any old business as this is our first meeting. So we'll move right into new business. So the time frame on the budget from the state is we need to put it through and needs to be accepted by September. It has been brought to my attention that we may also have a board policy that states sooner than that. So that may be something that will bring that timeline up. There is a whole process to launching a budget where I think we have to announce it in a paper and we have to present it to the public for comments similar to the strategic plan. So if we get this thing done September, we're late. We need to be ahead of that. So, and maybe even vastly ahead of that. So I'll look into what that date is based on our board policy, if it is different from the state, because that would kind of up our timeline a little bit, potentially.
Potentially up our timeline, or the board could choose to align with the state requirements if we wanted to.
Yeah, we could do a resolution to change our board policy.
Okay.
I was going to say in the past, if I remember right, I remember something in April. We had to do a budget review or something. And then we did another budget meeting in May. Okay. But yeah, that's a long time ago when I looked at that.
Yeah, and there was nothing of that sort last year. So this will be new for most of us.
Treading some water or treading new ground for a lot of us here. I really have a lot of confidence in our team when we put our heads together and start really honing in on a focused task. I think we're going to be able to put together something that is going to be strong. It's just a matter of with everything going on, it's just honing in that time for this year. And
sure.
We have a lot of fires on a lot of fronts that we're putting out all at the same time, but where I'm at this point, as far as finances and budget, is kind of priority one. Like it's where our attention
It
needs
pretty
to be
much
right
has
now.
to be, I think.
I think having QuickBooks has been a huge help. I know we looked at our income and expenses was for the insurance, and that was a matter of pulling a report that was 30 seconds or less. So now that everything's getting processed through there is making
Sure.
a lot.
And I
better.
think too, once we get to that point of actual numbers, then we can look at things like, what we're doing to reduce spending
Mhm.
and those kinds of be more aware of things that might have been in the past that were valuable that we don't need anymore. And those kinds of specific things, that we can cut down on expenses even,
And
and,
there were a couple items that were duplicate that we're honing through those and making sure that they're not taking care of something we're unaware of.
mhm,
But that would be some places we can save some money too.
yeah.
Would it be this committee's responsibility to work through those numbers? Trying to figure out why we don't.
So
Oh, so we would be doing that.
I think so.
Yeah.
That was my understanding. Your understanding too, Mike?
yeah, I would be, the only part that's a little bit of a concern on my end would just be to what level we grant what access as far as numbers. But it's a lot for any one or two people to do. So I mean, if we have people that are willing to do it and they have experience and they can, I don't see why any of it should be hidden.
No, it absolutely shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And
it's
so, I
like-
mean, it's all the numbers are,
Yeah.
what they are. And we're not,
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's what's easy with the QuickBooks side of it is you just push out, hey, I want this line item's detail.
for the whole year or whatever,
and we
yeah.
can print them off, and that's easy.
Be like a working committee, like we may need to have extra meetings or something. to keep timelines and stuff.
I think the way that I would try to do it would be where when we meet in these meetings here, there's two outcomes. The first outcome is we have, okay, this person and this person is going to go get this information so that the next meeting we have this information. And then the second outcome would be any potential board involvement, we'd have action items to take where it's like, hey, if we needed to change a board policy, if we, whatever the case is, but we, as a consensus and as a committee, we would come together and say, okay, this is what we need to build this budget correctly. And we kind of break out and do those tasks and come back and report back with that information. But that is, again, I'm naive and I'm new to this. So I'm just kind of trying to, that's the way it
Yeah,
seems that it would work best in my head.
I have another question.
Yeah.
So those of us that are here are the committee, like, so we can pull in Christine and Tammy to help if they want? Is that
I would say, yeah, anybody and everybody that is willing.
whoever shows up to the meetings becomes the committee?
Yeah. And I would throw out there as long as it's constructive and it's productive, like, I mean, if somebody ends up trying to be more destructive than constructive, but I think all input is warranted, even if it comes from different places. I mean, all feedback is feedback. So I think it would be a benefit to have more ideas than less ideas. But I would think that ideally we roll away from here with some sort of, we need these specific numbers, or we need this specific report, or we need whatever it is that we need for our first steps here. And we could say, okay, well, this person and this person are willing to raise their hand to go do that. And then whoever's in the room can raise their hand.
In other words, we don't need to have participants. We need to have formal heads of the committee, but we don't need to have formal notification of participants in the committee, or do you know that? Because there are also forms that we fill out sometimes for volunteers.
Yeah.
And so,
Potentially you would have
You'd still have a disclosure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I can't think of the word, but for non-disclosed, like for businesses.
like an NDA thing,
NDA,
yeah.
that's what I'm thinking. So
Yeah.
potentially that would be something to look into.
Yeah, something to figure out how we can
Yeah.
expand our committee would be great, but we have to make sure we have all the,
But I don't know that you'd have to do anything in an official capacity. Like, let's just say we said you volunteered to get our bill squared away for our monthly bills. And Sherry was going to help you with that. If you guys came into the office to do that task, I don't think that needs to be a public meeting or anything like that. It's just now you're going to do the task so that when we come back, we have that number to report. We
Gotcha.
still need a volunteer paper for it. Yeah, and there would be, yeah. And I think we're looking to do a volunteer for liability as well as the NDA part of this. This was a little more sensitive in nature.
okay.
But
So, next question in that regard, can we somehow recruit people to be on our committee through the website or through signage or something?
I would say,
Yeah.
I mean, we can announce it at the board meetings for sure. I think the Facebook page, people engage with the Facebook page somewhat. We have a bulletin, the
Okay.
door, so we
If
can.
we do that, and not all of the committees, not just this one, but
Mhm.
because I'm not sure that anybody really knows that opportunity to serve on a committee is available. So if we get that word out too, that might help.
Is there anybody that comes to mind specifically that has put out a budget in the past that that name?
She's in Alaska, but I was thinking to Dan James. But Carrie would help probably. Say that again?
Remotely work,
Okay.
maybe. Can't hurt to ask.
Yeah.
I think, again, more ideas is better than less
Trying to
ideas.
think of,
Done it before.
Yeah.
That,
yeah.
So I think we got a little derailed there. We were talking about the time frame for the budget. So the time frame is kind of up in the air right now. Best case scenario, it's September.
Okay.
And there's a whole process to that. Worst case scenario, it's sooner than that.
I think I've at one point looked at the policies to, as you bring it along and what you're supposed to do and have public meetings and that kind of stuff. So that information will be good for us to know, obviously.
Yeah.
So,
here to put that together for the next meeting is to have a timeline layout of when we have to do all the meetings and.
that'd be great.
Very helpful.
Thank you.
And then if you could too, Oz, just what the process, like step by step, may look like. Because I was talking to, I think it was Greg. I forget who I was talking to about, but it was a whole process. Like it was announcing it, it had to go in, I think, a public paper. It had to be presented.
Well, I'm
to
not sure about that, but there is a process. So,
Yeah.
and I saw it at one point. Yeah. We needed to go through all the particulars there. So,
Any additional public comment on the time frame? So we move on to item 6 on the to dot list. I apologize for that typo. One of these days I'm gonna figure my life out. It's a lot all at once. So on the to-do list here, I guess I would just pose the question, to get this process started and on the right foot, what would be the list that we need, the information we need, so that next time we have something to work with?
previous budgets would be, the first part in my mind, Sherry, wouldn't you think? We need to know what they spent last year, what they spent the year before, how it's laid out.
Previous budgets and.
And that's the first thing, I think, and then, again, if I think that there's any, and I don't know if this is too early in the process, but suggestions for cutting costs, I think might be of value. I don't know, it might be too early for us to think about that yet, but
That's on your meeting next week, is it? That you look into that resolution, to change the timeline. Let's get that going now.
Aligned with the state requirement.
Yeah. I mean, if your next meeting isn't until June 2nd and we have to have a finalized budget by July, it is not happening.
Yeah.
So that view as a priority is to make sure we can get that changed and then we're in. Right, but that also gives us the time because that process, there is a process and it's time,
Hmm.
it's multiple months
Yeah, I think,
after we
Yeah.
even figure out what we want to present.
sure. And then there's a 2-week present or 30-day present and all that stuff. So, yeah. Gotcha. I think that's a good idea to see if we can align with the state for timing and present that, maybe.
I'll look into what our policy says now.
The other thing I was trying to put together, and it's categorized a little bit, separated out, so it's not as easy as just like, oh, what are our monthly expenses? But putting together like the year of our monthly, quarterly, annual expenses, I think that's probably one of the first things we're going to need to really be able to compare to the old one. Because the other thing too is just because they look pretty doesn't mean they're right.
Sure.
So we'd have to, and the numbers might have changed since then because they might have new expenses we didn't have.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that
we'll
would-
need to compare those
Yeah.
to what
So
we're spending now. And if I recall, our last budget was directly tied to what we were spending on a monthly basis. And so it was a little frustrating because there were, we didn't have a real good handle on things. And so I think that this is a good opportunity to really nail down what we're doing, how much things cost, and where things are, where we can trim. So you're right. We need the previous budgets, but we also need our costs.
Correct. And that's the thing, especially when it comes like fire net last, and we have the spent went up from $4,300 to $9,500 this year
For your
for the
dispatch.
dispatch. So between fuel costs and stuff like that, there's a big jump from 2 years ago to
Sure.
now.
Yeah, those two, even if we just compared, well, 2 years ago, good to know as a template. Last year, good to know as in terms of how much we spent, and then this year, how much we are spending compared to what our revenue is. There's also, I know that the revenue source is primarily the sewer fee, but we also have that grant money. And I don't know if that figures into any kind of budgeting at all or not, because it seems like part of it could, because we are repaying that contract
Yeah.
with that.
I almost feel like that would be a separate budget or even just tangential in here, but if we need to include it, we can. But it's going to be very specific as far as what we can use it for.
Sure, but doesn't it have to show someplace we have to show if we get X amount of dollars for computers or for cybersecurity, which is what it's supposed to be for, we have to show that somewhere.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
It's
and
my
show where
underst-
the money comes from. It's not coming from sewer
Sewer
funds,
account.
it's coming from someplace else.
And we have to put the money out before they'll reimburse us, right? So.
Right,
that
so it's
needs
all
to
got to
all
be all
adjusted,
shown, yeah, where it is.
I think there is a line item for grants on the budget.
In the budget.
So, and
That
that
well could be.
I'm 90% sure that there is a line item already. I know in the new line items through QuickBooks there is.
So that would it's automatically factored in there then. Yeah.
And that's the thing, just put your lump sum, it's still being broken out in your other sides of it. And you in one line item, say communications, you have expense, you break down that even further into other subcategories of this line item is with cybersecurity.
So the whole thing is tracked throughout
Yeah.
the system, yeah. That's the basically what we need to do.
Yeah.
Track what's coming in, what's going out, and
And that's the thing,
justify it all.
and specifically with the end of it, that's where you see your numbers where the wash happens
Mhm.
is at the end numbers, not the in between, all that fun stuff.
So I think what I'm just kind of coming back to what Sherry said regarding the time frame. If our next meeting is June, I think that we need to be further along than we are now. So what I think I I would say, I'm gonna look into budgets, just in general, like from Herlong and some of these other places that are constantly recommended as like, our shining
Mhm.
stars, and
Gotcha.
compare them to what we have and start putting together basically a skeletal structure of the budget. So by next meeting, we have that to at least look at, and we can start making notes on it. We can start saying, this is right, that's wrong. We can
Yeah.
fill these numbers in, but at least we can probably make a lot more progress if we're starting with that.
Have something to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably maybe get us jump started a little bit.
Time to do the monthly, quarterly, annual expenses, and I can help you to get that together before the next meeting?
Before the next meeting of this meeting.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, I do.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I do.
June 2nd.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, and I'll help you.
That's one of the, that we've been tracking with QuickBooks with the system. You can set your dates to do quarterly, monthly, or whatever you wanted.
So they could, that would
You
just
see
spit
your
it right
time
out
of,
for us.
I want
huh?
January 1st to March 31st.
Mhm.
Which one?
Yeah.
That easy.
Well, logistically, you don't want to be in QuickBooks when Kelly's in there trying to pay bills and stuff. Is there a way that we could come in on a Monday or a Friday or something? Well,
Something in the past.
I'm thinking she's on her computer using QuickBooks. I don't know how many computers have QuickBooks on it, who has access to it.
Mhm.
My feeling is we would need to use her computer, right?
I also have access to QuickBooks. So,
So we
Yeah, I'd
basically
say-
needs a person to help us do that, I think.
Yeah.
So either you or Kelly, we just need to, a time when all of us can work it out to where, be here and get that done. I am too,
We might
most of the
just
time, except
bring
for
it the
going
next
to
meeting,
Washington.
is you give Court Dr. Holly for access to.
What was that, Frankie?
At the next board meeting, I'll for access.
Throw Scott's name in on that too.
Mhm.
Is Scott Zooming today or?
He is not.
Oh, okay.
He is not. That's probably my fault.
And there might be something that we're not thinking of right this moment that Scott could be working on for the next meeting too.
Mhm.
It sounds like we got a pretty good,
Yeah.
at least start.
Yeah.
I also have weekly meetings with Holly, with our bookkeeper. And so that could be something I can just bring that up to her and maybe she can kind of help guide that skeletal structure, make sure we're on the right path, if that's in her wheelhouse. I think it would be pretty apparent if it's not. But she could be a resource.
And everything's going well with that relationship?
Yeah, we're still working through the fiscal audits. We're trying to, again, kind of like that $49. Like, how does this get factored into where?
Mm.
There's been things that have been paid out of the sewer account for a while that probably should have been paid from bond money, just because of understanding and knowing where stuff's supposed to go. So really, I'm trying to get that all those avenues figured out, what's supposed to happen, and then I can take what's supposed to happen and compare it to what's happened.
Sure.
And hopefully it's almost the same.
Almost, yeah,
But
that would be
if it's
good.
not, then we can.
And if
get
it's
it
not, we
aligned.
can
So-
adjust it. Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate that because we just want to
Yeah.
steer the ship.
So I was speaking with Taya at the county and Michelle at the county, and also Stephanie. So it's the auditor, the tax collector, and the clerk. And they've been really helpful, very supportive. So I feel like we can get it figured out and make sure we got everything moving in the right direction. But it's just going to take time.
Sure. There's a lot.
So I think that was the to-do list. Any additional things on the committee for discussion or public comment? All right, Any additional, so what I have currently for action items would be for the, I'd just like to recap this at the end of the meeting so I don't forget what goes to the board. Potentially looking into what it would be to grant Elle and Scott access to polling reports. And I know there's tiers that you can grant specific types of access. So depending on what we have in board policies and things of that nature of what the board should or could have access to, as long as we're adhering to all that. The other action item I have would be the resolution to align our policy for with the state and see if the board wants to vote on that. Potentially actually that's a separate item. And then I think those are the two things that I wrote as far as take backs to the board. Is there anything I'm missing?
Not that I recall.
Okay.
And then bring back to us is those documents about costs and those kinds of
Yeah.
things for next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the NDA and the volunteer, is that something that requires board approval? Like once I finalize the document, or we may even have one.
There is
Okay.
a document, but I don't think we needed board approval. You mean per person that,
Well, I was just gonna say if we're gonna write an NDA
no.
from
I
scratch.
think you already have
Okay,
one.
so we don't
So
have to
just
get
go
that for-
look for it in there. It's there somewhere.
All right, perfect. So
Okay.
I'd say unless there's anything else. Pretty happy doggo.
Yeah.
Enjoying that sunshine. I'll turn it back over to Elle for item 7.
Okay. Motion to adjourn the meeting.
I guess I'll second it.
Okay.
So.
I wondered how that was going to work with just a few of us. So